Hello and welcome to British Champions Series TV, presented by the Armchair Jockeys. We are at Ascot to preview the most glamorous, the most competitive and most varied race meeting anywhere in the world. The 7 Group 1 races run at Royal Ascot's 5-day fixture are all part of the QIPCO British Champions Series, and the best horses from around the world are here to put their reputations on the line. And the show starts with the best of the best. The mighty Frankel bids to extend his unbeaten run in the Queen Anne. Next up in the King's Stand, Bated Breath leads the home team against a strong international challenge. Can Carlton House give Her Majesty the Queen a Royal Ascot winner in her Diamond Jubilee year in the Prince of Wales's? Fame and Glory will attempt to defend his Gold Cup crown and give Aidan O'Brien his 6th win in 7 years in the Stayers Showpiece. And the dazzling, unbeaten diva from down under, Black Caviar, has travelled halfway around the world to show us Brits firsthand what she's capable of. And what a fabulous way to start Royal Ascot with the Queen Anne Stakes and the reappearance of Frankel. My Armchair Jockeys colleagues Lydia Hislop and Steve Mellish, I hope, are as excited as I am about seeing the great horse in action once again. It's
amazingly exciting. There can be no better way of kicking off this iconic meeting, the most iconic meeting in the world, than seeing Frankel in the Queen Anne. It's familiar turf for him. He won at this meeting last year, not so impressively in the St James's Palace Stakes, but very impressively here in the Queen Elizabeth Stakes last October. So he knows what he's doing, and we all can expect what he'll do, which would be to win impressively yet again before hopefully stepping up in trip later on in the year.
Well, I have to say there is no bigger fan anywhere in the world of Frankel than this man here, Steve Mellish.
It'll be great. The limited number of opportunities we'll have to see him before, one day he retires, and it'll just be great again. The best horse in the world, strutting his stuff at a place as we know he's proven out, and say what better way to actually start the meeting. How much of a race it will be, I've got my doubts, but it'll be another opportunity to see one of the great horses of our lifetime.
Well, Frankel is owned by Prince Khaled Abdullah. His racing manager is Teddy Grimthorpe. I caught up with him recently and began by asking him how impressed they were with his return in the Lock-in Stakes.
Well, in every way we were, really, because after his little scare, we were a bit apprehensive going into a sort of Group 1, having missed about 10 days. So to get him back on track and really the way he did it was just really pleasing, and we were delighted with him. He's got this incredible stride, so a lot of other horses, you can see it in his races when he's racing and he's taking one stride and the other horse behind him is just having to do that little bit extra just to keep up with him.
He's proved so superior over a mile. People are saying, well, what more have you got to prove over that trip?
Yeah, I think there's, in terms of proving, I mean, everyone thinks everything is a sort of penalty kick. Group 1s, no, I don't know of a Group 1 that's a penalty kick, even for Frankel. We want to actually get him up to 1.25 miles, definitely, because that gives him a bit more range, and the whole point of keeping him training really was to do something a bit different. I think from the Prince's point of view, I think he wants to let Henry make him as good as he can be. If he's remembered for being one of the greatest milers, or the greatest miler, or the greatest 1.25 mile horse of all time, or up there, that would be pretty good for us.
You know as well as I do that 90% of people who will turn up to Ascot on the day, they are going to think that this is just another walk in the park for Frankel.
I hope it is.
OK, well, let's just focus on his challenges in the Queen Anne Stakes. Celebration, he is without doubt a top-class horse, but he's significantly, now we know, inferior, despite being very good, to Frankel.
He's 4-0 down, isn't he? And he was beaten by a more comprehensive margin in the Lock-in, having had a run before that, and Frankel was first time out, than he was in the Queen Elizabeth II Stakes. So I think Celebration is going to have to settle for being second best.
The strong suit probably has it all to do against Celebration, far less Frankel.
I think so. The Hannahs are quite front foot trainers, they like to take their opportunities. Even if things aren't quite right for them, they tend to go for it. So I was quite surprised when Strong Suit was pulled out of the Lock-in because of the ground, but that's what they did. They're coming back to a track that we know that Strong Suit is effective on. I do fear that he's going to struggle with Celebration, let alone Frankel.
And I'm worried about the trip, but does he truly stay a mile? He might do, but he's got that to prove.
Time to make our selections for the Queen Anne Stakes, and I think we're all going to be in agreement on this one. Frankel for me.
It's got to be side glance, hasn't it? Frankel.
I wasn't sure when I came up here, but the arguments of you two have won me over. It's Frankel.
That's the view that the runners will have as they race up the 5 furlong course here at Ascot in the King's Stand Stakes. There's a strong international challenge for the race, but the home team is led by Bated Breath, and he's trained by Roger Charlton.
Yeah, Bated Breath won the first sprint of the British Champions Series, the Temple Stakes. First of all, what did you make of the run?
You know, his work had been good. I thought he was fit and ready to go, and I was impressed. He showed lots of speed. He had bar Solpar, who maybe got slightly interfered with. He was always winning the race. He showed terrific speed. 2 out, he was absolutely flying. So, you know, we'd at least won his group race. I'm a bit fed up of finishing second in Group 1 races, and it's my job to make Bated Breath a stallion. He's got all the great assets to be a stallion. He's got a great pedigree, he's got a wonderful temperament, and he's got good conformation. And, you know, we ticked the box a bit when he won the Group 2, and it was a course record, which is great. And I think his best chance will be in the King's Stand.
He's a good doer.
He's a good one.
He's a good doer. He's plenty good.
Yeah.
He loves it.
He's got a lovely attitude for a sprinter, though.
Yeah,
He's not,
superb temperament.
You know, at all.
And he's not all toey. I mean, in the races he goes down quite strong, but at home he never pulls. He's a sweet, charming horse.
Well, Connections have long said that they wanted to win a Group 1 race with Bated Breath. Is this the best opportunity for him, Steve?
It's a very good opportunity, Rishi. I think he showed last year that he's up to this sort of class, and as long as we don't get downpours beforehand, I think he's got a real good chance.
OK, well, now let's hear from some of the key international challengers.
The stiff 5 is probably similar to a 6 at home, so we feel that that's probably, you know, her most suited trip. She's coming off a good break now, and she's fresh, she's well, and I think the 5 will be perfect.
Just talk us through the win at Meehan on World Cup night, because I think the way the race panned out didn't really fall the way you thought it would do, or certainly the way she normally shows her best form.
Yeah, no, we thought we'd be a lot closer than we were. We had a bit of a shock when she was kind of 6 or so lengths off the lead, and coming from the tail of the field in a short run race like that, it's very difficult. But they went fast enough, and she was able to get in the clear late and rally home. So it was an excellent win. I think it's probably the best win of her career to date. And she's I'd say she's certainly in that form coming to Ascot.
She normally races prominently, and obviously there she showed a different side to her talents.
Yeah, she's had, I guess in terms of where she sits in her races, she has been forward and has sat further back in a variety of races. I think at Ascot, I think we've got to be closer. I don't think we can afford to be nearly that far away. Maybe 3 lengths from the lead is about as far as I'd like to be.
She's 7 years old now. Is it hard to say that she's better than ever?
I guess it is, but the fact is, I think she is better than ever. And certainly, I only had her for late in her career, and certainly the last 3 starts, I think she's certainly improved every time.
2 furlongs out in the Golden Jubilee 2 years ago, Brett Doyle felt that he wasn't right. He was starting to hang, so he'd obviously knew something was wrong. And when we pulled up, he was very lame, so took him back to the vet box and we x-rayed him immediately and found a condylar fracture. So the decision then was to just strap him up. We called his vet at the time, Richard Payne, and he was boxed back to Newmarket immediately, did more scans and was operated on the following morning. And fortunately, they've managed to save him, so it's full credit to the team.
Well, not just managed to save him. I mean, there must have been a thought that he wouldn't have raced again.
Absolutely. I mean, at that stage, we're just thinking of just the horse, really, just to make sure he gets through this all right. But despite that, he went back to Hong Kong, and this first few runs, he's lost a bit of confidence, but over his run, when he decides to get his form back, when he can actually think of using his leg again, he'd come back, as you can see.
And Steve, a Whiz Kid is an improving filly from France.
Well, she's certainly in good form, Rish. We saw her last year. She was second in the British Champions Sprint, so she certainly acts at the track, and she was impressive in France recently.
Lydia, Prohibit won the race last year. There's a suspicion, though, that he might not be as good.
I don't think he comes into the race as in such good form as he was this time last year. However, it was a particular set of circumstances that suited him really well. The leaders went off too fast. He ran on strongly late. If he gets that set of circumstances again, which he rarely gets, and here might be an opportunity to do that, then he might be a player again.
I'm going for Hortensia. Her trainer, Paul Messara's confidence was infectious. But aside from that, I was impressed with what she did in Dubai, where she won despite circumstances. I think if she gets a clean run here at Ascot, she'll be very hard to beat.
I'm going to go for Whiz Kid. She hasn't had the greatest amount of luck when she's raced over here in Britain, but first time out this season, it looked like she might be better than ever, and she has experience of this track.
I'm going for Bated Breath. He wouldn't want the ground to be riding too soft, but I think he's a genuine Group 1 performer. I think he'll prove it on Tuesday.
We're at the 2.5 furlong marker where the runners begin the turn for home to preview the St James's Palace Stakes. Now, it's a race that generally brings together the horses that have run in the Irish, English and other European 2000 Guineas. Power won the Irish version of it, and it was a marked difference to the performance he put up at Newmarket.
It was totally different to the 2000 Guineas run behind his stable companion Camelot, who's gone on to other things over longer trips. Power was quite muted that day, and in Ireland he was a different kind of horse. He was very patiently ridden. We're here, it's just a short straight, 2.5 furlongs here at Ascot. That can catch out horses that are patiently ridden. Power is clearly a much better profile than he was before, but that short straight is something to bear in mind. I think it's something to bear in mind for Born to See as well, who ran behind him in the Irish Guineas.
Yeah, it's a horse I think might come out best myself of the horses who ran in the Irish Guineas. It's they seemed at pains to teach him to settle it. I know they put the disappointing run in the English Guineas down to the fact that he pulled too hard, and it seemed to be the most important thing at the moment was to get the horse to settle, and he did. But the way the race was run, which was steadily run, he found himself a long way back, and the horses in front hadn't gone too quick, and he just was left with too much to do. I really like the way he finished off the race that day.
Those are the principal horses who ran in the classic races for 3-year-old milers so far. Let's hear from the trainers of some of the other contenders for the St James's Palace Stakes.
We start with Cogito, who's made a great start to his career with 2 from 2. What are his strengths?
Well, he's got a really good finishing style. He grinds it out. He looked good in his maiden, but the way he did it at Sandown the other day was really impressive. He's got an excellent temperament. You can do anything with him. He's very straightforward, easy horse to deal with.
What do you think? There was a little bit of cut in the ground at Newmarket, and probably a sounder surface at Sandown. Any preferences, do you think, that way?
Well, I mean, I've had a few out of the mare in the past, and they've all been they kind of vary on what ground they want. I wouldn't like to see him on soft ground. Frankie, I think, really kind of set out at Sandown to teach him a little more, so I think he probably could have won easier or won further if that hadn't been the case, but it was important to get him in the mix and get him out and, push him around in the race a little bit, which he did. So I think it's, he's a very straightforward horse, really.
Start with the St James's Palace. The Nile, who also ran recently and also I thought ran very well.
I like the horse a lot. He's got a good profile, lovely stride, good balance, and he could go and give a very good account of himself in a race like that.
Fencing, another one, a horse who's been running tremendously this year, 6th in the Guineas, 3rd in the Dante.
He's bred to be a 1.25 mile horse, but in the Racing Post last year, Camelot absolutely outclassed them, but I wasn't convinced that he wanted any further than a mile. Then we ran him in the Guineas, having missed his prep in the Craven due to a pricked foot. And he ran well, but he got a little tired. It wasn't ideal, and the ground was testing. We ran him in the Dante to gauge his trip. He ran very well, but William got off and said, this horse doesn't get an inch over a mile. He's built as a miler, but his pedigree says 1.25 miles. But, sometimes it's hard to rehearse it at home to find out their trip.
I think Power will win the St James's Palace Stakes and confirm his place as the leading 3-year-old miler of the season.
I'm going to go with Potential. I'm going to go for the Nile. I think he'll improve at a mile. I think he's progressive, and I don't think that those horses that have raced in the Guineas that are meeting here in the St James's Palace Stakes set too dizzy a standard.
I like the chance of Born to See. He's been slow to realise his full potential, but I like the way he's settled in Ireland. I think he's getting there, and I think you might see the real deal in the opening day at Ascot on Tuesday.
We do have the prospect on the Wednesday of Royal Ascot of Her Majesty the Queen looking down from the royal box on a winner in her own colours. Carlton House represents her in the Prince of Wales' stakes, and he's trained by Sir Michael Stoute. What was the reason for him not racing at the end of last year?
Well, after the Irish Derby, we weren't happy with his action. He was a bit jarred up, jammed up, and we then were happy that we had got him right and prepared him for the Champion Stakes. I'd say about 10 days before the Champion, we were again not happy with his movement. So he's had a good break and came back 11 months later, and it was a satisfactory return at Sandown in the Brigadier Gerard. We were concerned that there wouldn't be much pace, and he was race fresh, and he did do a little too much. It was a solid performance. He's now got to go forward.
I believe you were heard to say after the Brigadier Gerard that he won't run any mile-and-a-half races, at least this year. What's the thinking behind that?
Well, we think that he's better at 10 furlongs. He actually has got a arc entry, but at the moment we would certainly want to be not going beyond 10.
In terms of his attitude, are you happy with the way he does things?
He's got a great attitude. I mean, you look back to the Dante, third time on a race course, he came through a very narrow gap there. Sandown the other night, he really wanted it. In the Derby, he wanted it, but nothing went right, including the build-up, during that week when we had big problems with him. Then he didn't jump very well, and then he got messed about with some no-hopers and got pushed very wide. He ran a big race in the Derby. He's very honest.
Sirius de Zegel is proven here over the course and distance. He won the Champion Stakes last year, and he's still gone on to prove that that was no fluke, which some people thought at the time it may have been.
I've got to put my hands up here because I underestimated him prior to the Champion Stakes last year. I think he did prove himself to be the best 10 furlong horse, probably in the world, at the end of last season. That is a position he's maintained so far. I think you can throw out the last race. I thought it was a fast over a trip that's probably a little bit too short for him and wasn't run to suit. He sets the standard.
So you think at one point last season looked as if he was going to be the horse who would dominate over 10 furlongs, Steve. I thought a little bit disappointing towards the end of last year and certainly in Dubai.
Yeah, I thought he'd showed himself consistently to be just below the very, very best. Very good, very consistently won an Eclipse, but just below the very, very best. But there was something about his win on his reappearance. I know it was a race he should have won, but I thought it was really impressive there. I just wonder if this is now going to be his time.
Planter was fourth in the Prince of Wales's last year when he was trained by Elie Lelouch. He's now with Newmarket trainer Marco Botti.
He's a proper horse, he knows he's good. Physically, I think he's done so well. In Dubai, I don't know if you saw him before the race, he got really warm and a little bit wound up. In France, it was completely different horse, chilled out. And since he ran, actually, I think he has improved again. So the horse was both with the Dubai World Cup in mind. Obviously, the form was solid last year, and he was a good horse. I mean, he was impressive when he won the Prix de la Gagny. Then he probably lost his form the last two run, whether it was the ground or the drop back to mile, I'm not sure. However, since he arrived, we always thought he has a lot of class, and obviously looks a strong colt, and we've been happy with him. I think he's probably my best chance at the Royal Ascot.
I'm going for Carlton House to win the Prince of Wales Stakes. I think 10 furlongs will be his best trip, and I think he's open to a lot of improvement over that distance.
I'm going to go for Sirius de Zegel. He proved last season that he's the boss over this trip, and I think he still is. I'm
going for So You Think. I just have a feeling his winning Ireland last time out showed him to be his absolute best. I just have a sneak he'll be good enough.
Now we look ahead to what, for many people, is the highlight of Royal Ascot Week, the Gold Cup. And we do so in the shadow of four-time Gold Cup winner Yates, who was trained by Aidan O'Brien, and Aidan O'Brien is represented by last year's winner, Fame and Glory.
You need stamina and you need class, and in terms of his previous record over shorter trips, he's got class, and he proved last year he's got stamina. That was the doubt going into it. He's undoubtedly the horse to beat. Having started his career this season with a win, he's the one they've got to beat. But it's a pretty decent field, I think.
Sadler's Rock has long been thought of as an Ascot Gold Cup horse, and he's trained in Ireland by John Ox.
He won at Doncaster. He beat Opinion Pole, and he beat him well. He stays well, but he's got a good turn of foot. When you shake him up and give him a crack with the whip, he seems to find a lot. He races lazily, conserves his energy, which is what you need for cup races. He just lobs along, doesn't pull, very relaxed off the bridle, and then you know, produces, as I say, a good turn of foot at the end. So that's a rare quality, I suppose, in the horses that stay extreme distances. Very often they're a bit one-paced, you know.
Well, at the end of last year, there were a number of people saying that after his Doncaster Cup win, this is a horse that's marked down for the Gold Cup.
Certainly what I felt, Rish, I thought he looked at an absolute embryo Gold Cup the way he won. 2 mile 2, he was never going better than the final furlong. Things haven't gone to plan. He was meant to be seen a month or so ago and he had a slight setback, but he did reappear very recently, and I thought it was a really good reappearance. Over a trip too short and on ground definitely too soft.
Colour Vision is a horse that a lot of people thought would be a Gold Cup horse after he won at Kempton on his reappearance in this country. I'm slightly dubious about him staying 2.5 miles. His sire, Rainbow Quest, trawling through the best horses he ever had. They got 2 miles, but they didn't get further.
I take a slightly different view. I think he probably will stay. I'm sure he stays 2 mile 2 furlong. It's only an extra 2 furlongs. And I thought that he wasn't placed to best effect when third in the Long Distance Cup. It was a race that was dominated by horses that were more prominently positioned than he was. So I think there's more to come from him.
There are not many horses over staying trips that are as consistent as Opinion Pole. And a new season, same old Opinion Pole. He's just there doing his job.
He might even be slightly better Opinion Pole the way he won at Sandown last time out. He's a really likeable, reliable, genuine horse who seems actually to go on all ground now. We used to think he wanted soft ground. Trouble is, in the very, very top company, he's always come up just short.
Luca Kamani's Ibichenko ran a really good race behind Opinion Pole at Sandown. I think you were pretty impressed.
I was, mainly because there was a point about 1.5 furlongs out there I thought, you're going to finish 5th or 6th. And actually, he rallied and finished 2nd. I think 2.5 miles is really going to suit him. I think he's going to fly slightly under the radar. He's going to be far too big a price and he's likely to make the frame.
I think an Irish-trained horse will win the Gold Cup, but it won't be one trained by Aidan O'Brien. I think it'll be one trained by John Ox, Sadler's Rock.
I'm looking at this race from an each-way angle, and I think that Ibichenko is going to be way overpriced for a horse that is likely to stay a specialist trip.
Ever since I saw Sadler's Rock win the Doncaster Cup last season, I thought, there's a Gold Cup winner.
Now we come to preview the Coronation Stakes, the top race for 3-year-old fillies over a mile. Mick Channon has never won it before. Let's hear about his chances this year.
Samitar herself, interesting, she's proved herself very versatile. Thinking back to, you know, when she was a very good 2-year-old and she was second in the Fillies Mile at Newmarket. Yeah. Now, she was really positively ridden that day. She seemed to be equally effective, maybe even more effective, being given a bit of a chance in Ireland. Have you any preference?
I'm not worried how she does it, but you've got to be positive one way or the other. And in France, although we made the run and we were always waiting for the lead horse to come, but we were stuck in front, everything went wrong, you know. But that's horse racing. You need a bit of luck. But Martin got it spot on the day. There was good pace in the race. They took her along, and from halfway, you always knew that, you know, if she picked up, she was going to win.
Also, Ascot, you've got Laugh Out Loud, who's almost, I like the fifth horse, almost forced her way into the picture. Would that be fair to say, by progressing so much?
Yeah, not in the yard. We always knew she was pretty good. She always had a lot of speed, this filly.
And what would her ideal conditions be? Because she has handled a little bit of cut, hasn't she? And there was a bit in France.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, they had a fair bit of rain overnight, so it just loosened it up. But good ground would be perfect.
Aidan O'Brien is likely to have a strong hand in the race. Of course, it's a Group 1 race, so you wouldn't expect anything less. Who would be his principal contenders?
I think it was soft ground. I think Homecoming Queen would really come into it. She is a classic winner after all. But I personally think maybe might turn out the best. I think she was considered the best at the start of the season. I think there are signs that she's finding her form.
John Gosden's Elusive Cape was very good as a 2-year-old, but we haven't seen her this year.
Yeah, I think they've been waiting on the ground. I mean, John's got a lot of good 3-year-old fillies this year, and I think this was always considered among the best, certainly at a mile, but she could do with the rain keeping away.
I like Laugh Out Loud. I think she'll win the Coronation Stakes. She looks like she's progressing with every start.
I'm going to go for laugh out loud as well. I think arguably she's the filly that is progressing most coming into the Coronation Stakes.
I like Samitar. I like the way she was ridden in Ireland last time out. I think she's just about the form horse.
And now we look ahead to the Diamond Jubilee Stakes, named in honour of Her Majesty the Queen. And this year we welcome to our shores the Australian superstar Black Caviar. She's a 6-year-old who's raced 21 times and she's won 21 times. We've all heard how brilliant she is. We're going to see it for ourselves. But if you were coming over as part of the Black Caviar team, Lydia, what would be your concerns?
They don't seem to be displaying any kind of concern whatsoever, do they? They seem to be very, very confident, and you can understand why, given her record. I suppose my major concern would be that she's doing something she's never done before. She's travelling around half the globe. She's taking on a different set of circumstances, not just in the race itself, but in the run-up to the race, the training. It's a different set of horses. So there's a whole load of unknowns. That said, her compatriots have come here and done it before, and she is said to be the best of them ever. So why should they be concerned?
I suspect if she runs to her Australian form, she really ought to win. She does. I mean, you know, she's one of the excitements of the whole meeting, isn't it? The prospect to see her. She does look fantastic.
You look thrilled, by the way. You look so excited.
I'm thrilled. This is me being thrilled. She's as, you know, she seems to be all that they claim. I mean, 21 from 21, 11 Group 1s, and every time I see her on television, it looks to be the same race every time, in terms of she absolutely wins without being fully extended. So if she reproduces that form, I'm sure she'll win. Lydia's pointed out the worries. They just are. They're travelling and different set of circumstances. But that aside, you know, she should really win, obviously.
She's got her cool superhero lycra suit on as well for the travelling.
Yes.
It is tremendously exciting to see her here. I mean, in all seriousness, it adds a massive dimension to the meeting. She is possibly the most exciting international runner I think I have ever encountered in the entirety of my racing life.
I was going to say, we've had horses visit these shores before, but I can't remember people being as excited about seeing a horse come from abroad as they have been about her.
We've all been watching YouTube, haven't we? We've seen the devastation of her performances, and we want to see it for ourselves.
We spent too much time wondering whether her and Frankel will meet. I mean, I'm personally, I've never been bothered about that. I just want to see, you know, a great horse start the meeting and a great horse finish the meeting. That'll do me.
Yeah, well, if she does win the Diamond Jubilee Stakes, she will have to overcome some significant opposition. Let's talk about Moonlight Cloud, a horse who is a Group 1 filly. Steve, I know that you were impressed with the performance she put up in France last year against a decent field.
Yeah, in the Prix Maurice de Guise, I think that was the best performance put up by a European sprinter last year. Personally, she beat Society Rock by 4 lengths easily. We saw her on British Champions Day in the sprint, and she ran. I thought she was unfortunate. She met what trouble there was, and she didn't get a chance to show her full merit. Whether she would have won or not, I don't know, but she would have got an awful lot closer. And she started this season with a really easy win on her reappearance. She looks every bit as good as ever. 6-7 furlongs, it doesn't matter to her. She seems to have got any ground, but if there is a rain in the build-up, that won't do her any harm. I think she's the main threat.
Mick Easterby is represented by Hoofit, a horse who had a growing reputation last year. Is that reputation still intact?
Yeah, I think it is, really. I think he's better over 6 furlongs than he is over 5. My doubt would be that he didn't run very well in the Wokingham last year. Now, it was soft ground, but he does tend to handle soft ground, and some horses just don't go here at Ascot, and in the back of my mind, I'll be worried whether Hoofit is one of those.
Well, I'm loath to tip against Black Caviar. I expect that she'll win, but I hope that Moonlight Cloud shows her best form here when she turns up in the Diamond Jubilee Stakes, and at least it'll give some substance to what Black Caviar does or doesn't do.
I feel exactly the same way, really. I expect Black Caviar to win, and I think she'll win impressively. However, from a betting angle, I think because of her presence in the race, that Moonlight Cloud is too big a price.
The head says Black Caviar, and I think she'll probably win pretty comfortably, but my punting head says Moonlight Cloud each way. I think she's the best European sprinter, and I think she's probably the each way alternative against a very likely winner.
At the end of Royal Ascot, we'll have a clearer picture of how things stand in the 5 categories of the QIPCO British Champions Series. Next time, we'll reflect on those achievements and identify some new challenges. And we'll also look ahead to the Coral Eclipse, the first significant clash between the classic generation and their elders. But for now, from Steve, Lydia and myself, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.